Right now, residents of Maumee, Ohio are drowning in debt.
Homeowners of Maumee are being told they have to make thousands of dollars in repairs.
The city could spend as much as $100 million.
I don't think most people have that kind of money laying around.
3 years ago, the city invested in uniting the town to become one of the strongest in America.
This is an overall view of Uptown and what could be. Yes, it does include the road diet.
Road diets, parking limits, and tactical urbanism, all aligned with Strongtown's philosophy, have agitated local residents.
Maumee residents saying that they feel like these changes are causing more traffic.
I watch accidents every day.
With attempts at financial transparency being the last straw.
I know that there's an issue. I just don't think the answer is to have an emergency meeting, push this zoning ordinance effective immediately with no input from any residents.
So what exactly is going on in Maumee? And have all of these controversial changes been worth it? What's the reality when confronted with the debt we can't pay off? Or the pushback that we face when, at first, change feels more like a loss than a win? How do you handle the fear that our local government wants to potentially do us more harm than good?
But I can't get an honest answer from anybody, and I've left.
Talking about money and debt can be a sore subject. Yet, unfortunately, Maumee's story is not that different from other towns. But it's a story that seldom gets told. We encourage discussion in the comments and ask that you remain respectful as we figure out what's happening here. And if Maumee is able to follow through on creating a solvent city. In order to understand why there's so much tension in Maumee, we have to first look at how Strong Towns is connected here. Starting with our annual Strongest Town competition, a seed that grew out of this philosophy.
It's very easy to get wrapped up in negativity, pointing to all the mistakes that we collectively as a society have made. What would happen if we flipped it around and said, where are the places who are doing great Strong Towns things?
On April 17th, 2024, Strong Towns called Maumee City Administrator to deliver some exciting news.
Hey Patrick, this is Chuck Marone with Strong Towns. How you doing?
Hey Chuck, how you doing?
Good, good. I gotta tell you some news.
The hardest thing that I have to do is to call places and tell them,
sorry, you're not going on because
those places are all doing great things. But that's not what this call is. This call is to tell you.
We are really, really proud to name Maumee the 2024 Strongest Town. So congratulations.
A strong town is not a perfect town, nor is it a town that has it made, but it's a town that is sincerely working towards building resilience.
We believe in this movement. We believe that what we can do is make our towns is to rethink how we do government. That's what's really important here.
Whoa, rethink how we do government? That sounds challenging. Why would we need to do that? Shouldn't the systems we already have in place work in favor of creating strong and financially solvent cities? Okay, that's a doozy of a question. But to understand why it's asked in the first place, we need to get a better look at where it stems from. An idea that was well-intentioned, but has left us and our cities more fragile than ever.
The suburbs. Nice home in Suburbia, and some nice kids.
And we'll have the living room right in here, and the kitchen right here.
Oh, they join the stream of family life in the suburbs. It has its good moments, and others not so good.
In 1817, the town of Maumee was founded, spread across roughly 25 acres of land along the Maumee River in northwest Ohio. Like many towns of the day, growth happened chaotically and by many hands, but then it was exchanged by many cities, including Maumee, for a pattern that was much more organized yet sterile. In 2020, Maumee's city administrator, Patrick Birch, started to notice that people were not using the downtown infrastructure as it was originally designed to be used.
I grew up in a town right next door to Maumee, and as a kid, I spent a lot of time uptown Maumee. I told council the public spaces you have, where people live and where people do business, are separated by large roads and streets.
It really didn't afford for parking. It didn't afford for people to walk safely through the uptown area. And certainly no room for biking or any other type of mobility.
He started asking questions and reading a ton, and soon felt equipped with ideas to address the problem. But instead of planning behind closed doors, Patrick wanted to take a different approach.
The process is to demonstrate how it works.
I think the industry traditionally makes the mistake of spending 80% of its time talking about 30 years from now and only 20% of its time talking about what can we get underway sooner than that. We take the opposite approach. We spend about 20% of our time establishing that North Star, that decision-making filter, and 80% of our time on the small little things we can do to get there in the next couple of years.
Not only were they able to do all of this, but they did it so well. Yard & Company and Maumee found engaging ways to invite locals to participate in the planning process.
We start by meeting people in a variety of ways. We showed up at community events, neighborhood coffee shops and ice cream parlors, football games, where people could provide input on questions about where the city was headed and what made it special today. What should change, what shouldn't change, that kind of thing.
Then visualize that data in a clear way to create strategies to figure out where needed the most improvement and what was already working well, resulting in Conant Street's makeover from unsafe to walkable. By reducing traffic speeds through good street design and encouraging development on vacant lots by easing policy restrictions.
It's brought a lot more foot traffic throughout Maumee, plus it's also opened up more parking on our side of the street.
It definitely makes it look so much nicer if we're just looking at aesthetics. Those updates definitely make people take a second look at the businesses that are in the area and going, oh, well, I never knew that you could sit outside here, or what's down this street? And I think people may tend to explore a little bit more.
So why are people angry?
Again, we've got 90 days to repair it. We don't have that kind of money, so we cannot take our money out of our savings account.
Despite City Council and residents sharing a vision for sustainable growth, uncovering the city's financial situation quickly made success feel sour. Yeah, change isn't always easy.
Told you about the push by people in Maumee to repeal a sewer ordinance.
Unplanned financial burden to fix their sewer systems.
The entire burden at this point is being put on the backs of residents.
This is any city's worst nightmare. Yet there's evidence to back that most cities are in a similar financial state, even if you don't know it. Worse still, we continue to develop with a suburban pattern that perpetuates this descent into debt, something we all need to address head on, or else jeopardizing our financial stability and that of our neighbors long term. These are the questions that have been swirling around in my mind since diving into this story. Now, I'm the kind of person who likes to see the bright side of things. Let's look at our problems as opportunities kind of person. Just like Yard & Company and Pat did to better Conant Street. But talking about money is difficult. And if answering these questions was categorized as some type of marathon, we would be running an ultra. And it's not going to be easy.
There's just so much negativity and nastiness out there. Acting like that to each other, our own residents. It takes all of us to make up this town. City Council isn't Maumee. It's all the residents together. That's Maumee.
A debt of $100 million does not accumulate overnight, nor is it the fault of any one person.
Sewage. What a great topic.
I think it's a whole learning process on both sides. Unfortunately, some people are very upset about it, but they've still been able to try and work through this process.
When we're talking about the sewer issue, it's kind of like the old adage, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So when I pose with something to fix, I try to fix it.
In 1996, Maumee reported to the Ohio EPA that it had completed work to separate its sewer lines from its storm drains. This was to comply with their total maximum daily limit of 25 million gallons of sewage disposal into the river annually. However, between 1996 and 2020, the city discharged an estimate of 150 million gallons of sewage into the Maumee River. Under typical circumstances, if the system is overburdened, that discharge needs to be reported by law within 5 days of its release. An anonymous tip from a city employee to City Administrator Patrick Birch, along with former Law Director David Busick, former Mayor Richard Carr, and former Council President Tim Pocken, triggered immediate communication with the EPA to self-report Maumee's illegal activities. which resulted in a $30,000 fine from the Ohio EPA and a $100 million price tag to fix the sewage system. Okay, kudos to the team for reporting this issue in the first place, but I want to know what the root cause of this issue is. Like, where does it all begin for a small town of 14,000 people to owe $100 million in infrastructure debt? At the end of World War II, economists were scared that the US would slip back into the Great Depression. Using this as a motivation, the suburban development pattern was birthed to create intentional growth for our cities, along with roads, highways, and large infrastructural systems that were subsidized and incentivized with low interest rates and lending opportunities. In 1940, Maumee had a population of 4,689 residents, with about 6,000 square feet of developed land per person in town. Today, with a population of 13,824 people, there's roughly 20,200 square feet of developed land per person. What does this mean?
Literally, if you counted the water and sewer, and we're a relatively small town, right? We're 11 square miles. I can go to Columbus and back with our sewer lines.
When a complex system has an abundance of resources and no longer is subjected or can solve the stresses by simply throwing more resources at them, they cease to become complex, they cease to adapt, and they become merely complicated. And complicated is another word for fragile.
So when you start talking into the tens of millions of dollars, even over 100 million in repair, you start putting it in perspective.
Building on the premise that spread out development generates economic wealth in 2024 is a debt trap. It helped to keep people employed and busy after World War II, but today, more space between us means more utilities need to be run between us. Without proper incremental development, i.e. businesses or more homes, whose tax dollars can support the maintenance of this infrastructure. This burdens city budgets with astronomical maintenance fees that no one can afford, even if our records are full and complete. This is not a Maumee problem. This is a North American development problem. Basically, what we're learning in real time is this debt is a byproduct of unmaintained or neglected systems, which really begs the question, how did we not know about it? According to Truth in Accounting, a nonpartisan think tank based out of Chicago, 53 out of the 75 most populous cities in the US don't have enough money to pay their bills. So how has nobody noticed this? At the end of each fiscal year, a government financial report, done by every city, is balanced and made public to its residents. It's not uncommon for residents to be unaware of a city's long-term financial situation. This is often due to complexities and issues involved in municipal finance. Many cities have long-term financial obligations, like pensions or infrastructure maintenance, that aren't fully reflected in the annual budget. These hidden liabilities can make the city's financial state seem healthier than it really is, and they remain hidden for many, many years. When the time comes to repave a road or upgrade an aging system, the money is due all at once.
If I'm looking at a house that has 500 feet of frontage and I need an 8-inch water line and a 12-inch sanitary sewer and everything I need for living inside the city, who's going to pay for that when it needs to be repaired in 30 or 40 years or 50 years?
Cities must scramble to find revenue to address these budget shortfalls and look to federal and state institutions for competitive grants for things like widening roadways, expanding public transportation systems, and expanding water and sewage lines. However, when Maumee applied for a grant to assist in the upgrade of their sewage systems, they were denied. Federal and state funds are focused on growth and not intended for the maintenance of already existing infrastructure. Maumee then tried to infuse cash into the system by raising water bill rates and proposing yearly increases, while the investigation looked to pinpoint the main cause of the issue, so the problem could be better addressed, later identifying that homes in the city with a combined stormwater and sewer line as the root cause for overwhelming the sewer system with overflow. Financing these sewage repairs quickly went from being a municipal responsibility to individual property owners. But immediate pushback from locals caused a unanimous vote to repeal the ordinance, with the city offering a grant to help citizens at certain income levels pay for repairs in its place.
We're trying to do the least impactful thing on our citizens and try to make it so we can try to make a difference and have some success. and we can show that to the EPA.
All local governments outline their infrastructure responsibilities in public works, city services, or municipal maintenance documents. Long-term liabilities were accepted by the community when the sewage system was originally installed decades ago. Over time, these liabilities become lost in the complexities of issues with municipal finance if they aren't fully accounted for in annual budgets. Maumee is not alone in this struggle. General practices for municipal budgets are not transparent enough to reflect these hidden liabilities. However, reflecting on what is built, the cost to maintain it, and how we get funding for that, it's clear that all of our cities are insolvent. Now, Maumee is super aware of this. That is the core reason that they are making these hard moves to create a more solvent and resilient place. So we can only build up solvent cities if we start to be more accountable and reflect long-term maintenance needs in our city's budgets. But when we first uncover debts that are not known to us, who actually has to pay up? The problem is not solely in excess of infrastructure compared to what we can afford. It's that we've created a development pattern that has perpetuated this cycle of growth, dependent on national and state funding to build out these projects, only to be left to our own devices at the local level to maintain it all. It's a system that does not allow us to build adequate infill, whose tax dollars can then better support these basic and necessary services.
They basically told us, you got 15 years to fix this, and you can no longer dump anything. So here's it.
The burden falls on all of us to maintain our local roads, our energy grids, and our water and sewage systems. But there's more infrastructure in need of maintenance than taxpayers who are able to sustain it.
Change is always hard, but we just got to remember that it's for the good of the better later on.
Pushback is expected. The lack of transparency and poor decision-making made in the past that led to this moment is frustrating. The fact that we've adopted the burden of insolvent cities from a development pattern that we were not privy to give our opinions on is frustrating. Will mistakes continue to be made as we fix our city's finances and build safe and resilient places? Yes. Can that be discouraging? Of course. But the math is clear. Continuing to build out suburban development and neglect these very real problems that affect our cities will leave them more unstable than dealing with these problems right now.
What distinguishes Maumee is that a group of citizens got together and started very much neighborhood-driven conversations about growth and change and the need for planning, and saw opportunities to shape change.
I think it takes several people who are willing to have discussions with people. I think you try to meet people where they are, and I'm not talking in a town hall meeting. Those get out of control very quickly. You have to do a lot of face-to-face discussion.
I really commend our city for making some of the decisions they have. I'm glad they're trying to tackle some of these issues and not just push them off for the next administration or the next generation to handle. Sooner or later, somebody's got to dig in and get their hands dirty. I'm fully okay with that time being right now.
Think about those New Year's resolutions you wrote 10 months ago. How are they going? Don't beat yourself up. It's just about recognizing that getting up every day and being able to say, hey, we're gonna do this, despite not wanting to sometimes, says more about the spirit and resilience of the town than the current tensions people feel today. Put simply, it's chaotic, but smart. I think I understand what Pat said at the beginning. Instead of thinking about our residents as customers, it's about active involvement and communication between local government and residents to continuously iterate on the city. That is the nature of bottom-up action. But conflict over whether the decisions to upgrade Conan Street were worth it, coupled with the shadows of debt cast on the city, could make some residents hesitant to move forward on a new plan for Maumee, potentially jeopardizing the hard work and upgrades made here. But sometimes the loudest voices are not the only voices.
After my accident, I've had to make some adjustments to my home for it to be more handicap accessible. We wanted to put up a fence and a pool for aqua therapy for me, as I progress and try to get better. When we went down to get a permit to do so, being on a corner lot, the ordinance said that basically we had 2 front yards and you can't put up a 6-foot fence in a front yard. We had to go in front of an ordinance board to get a variance on that. Hatcher city administrator, he actually came out with 2 girls out of the permit office on their lunch break and came to my house personally and measured out my yard and put stakes in it and everything. That way I could take pictures to the variance board and show them exactly what I was going to do.
It's important to remind ourselves that the overall theme of this is building for neighborliness. And what that means for us is that everything we propose is going through the filter of, does it add or detract from our ability to be neighborly?
So what can we do to follow through on building a strong, solvent city?
We probably have an opportunity in our sewer issue to actually fix the problem, to take care of all the discharges.
There's no doubt in my mind that we're going to find solutions and work through it.
I was a part of the initial meeting with the master planning team. They wanted to get some feedback from the businesses, which I appreciated. And then seeing them enact some of those thoughts, seeing people interact, doing different pop-up events, or giving people opportunities to feel part of the conversation.
Although focusing on the process of making a stronger place will result in delayed gratification, the satisfaction of knowing your place is secure and productive creates a stronger sense of stability long term.
When you set a vision as to what you want a city to do and what you want it to become and what you want the future to look like, and when everybody comes together, that is a huge, strong sense of community.
Public service gave me the ability to look 3 to 4 years in advance and be able to tell people, if you stick with these philosophies over a 3 or 4 year period, it won't happen overnight any more than, getting an economic development project and doing it the right way, or even on the home shows. Everybody's building until the last time you're staging the place, right? It all comes together very quickly. And I think that's what you're seeing in Maumee.
What I've learned in this process of what it takes to build up a strong town is more than just the visual gratification of having charming streets. Although it can be a byproduct of development, a strong town is built through collaboration and accountability, by making repairs of systems that go unseen, establishing trust between local government and residents. We're not blind to the fact that the problems we face are enormous and multifaceted and somehow all connected to one another. Yet the only way to not be paralyzed by their complexity is to approach them incrementally. Maumee is our 9th strongest town competition winner. They won because of the incredible work to explore, test, and follow through with building a more walkable and commercially viable Conant Street. Although unsure about their future, they are taking accountability and have seen positive benefits from starting to make these changes.
I can honestly tell you, since the investments that we've made and the direction that we've had, that we are having more interest in people wanting to set up here, wanting to develop here. They love to know that when they're coming in, that the city is backing them with their infrastructure and that they're creating an environment that is going to help their business thrive as well.
I could have moved my business anywhere, but I really felt a connection with being in Maumee, and that walking community that I saw was possible.
I actually see more people walking around this uptown than even I saw as a child. No longer is traffic traveling at 50 miles an hour next to your baby carriage 3 feet away. Not to mention some very large street trees and light poles and all sorts of vertical edge friction that make people feel framed in their space and travel slower. And it makes people feel stronger.
The whole towpath project down by the river, it just blows you away. Probably even go fishing right on the edge. If I wanted to, I could get that close, That means a lot to people like me and people that are disabled.
It is this attitude that puts Maumee one step ahead of all of us, confronting their skeletons and working to find a path forward together. If your town is facing itself in the mirror and working hard to make a better place, then consider applying to next year's competition. It'll be in the description below, or the iCard above. We invite the winner to our annual national gathering. And if you want to hear last year's winner's story, then watch this one right here. You should go check it out. And I'll see you soon.